Once upon a time there were some fishermen who went fishing on a large lake. They cast down their fishing nets in hope of a great catch. The day wore on, and they were weary from the heat. They had fished all day and caught nothing. In one last effort, they cast their barren net back into the dark waters. To their amazement, they dropped the net right over a multitude of fish. The fishermen were delighted that their efforts had finally paid off. The fish, on the other hand, were not so glad. As they were being pulled up from the safety of their home, they screamed out for someone to save them. They tossed and fought against the monstrous net to no avail. Many were injured in their attempt to be free. A few even died from their wounds when they tried to escape. Most slowly surrendered to the net and accepted their fate. After all, it was a miraculous experience to be lifted out of the water. One small little fish near the bottom of the net determined to be free, no matter the cost. That small little fish fought and fought with all its might. It fought through the suffocating multitude of the other fish who had already given up. The small little fish reasoned and studied and refused to give up on the notion that freedom was just one more swish away. It took what seemed like an eternity for the small little fish to work its way from the bottom of the death net to the top. As the small little fish moved closer to freedom, it began to encourage the rest of the trapped fish to fight on, but the rest were not willing to fight anymore, and even came to believe a greater fate awaited them once they were on the big, impressive boat. They began to claim a faith that said the fishermen were bringing them to a better place. The sun was almost sinking below the horizon when the fishermen made their final heave to bring the net aboard the boat. In that final moment, the small little fish made its last push for freedom. In the solitude of that moment, as the sun was dipping into the water, the small little fish came shooting out of the midst of the day's catch. It had escaped the net. Freedom never felt so free. As the small little fish hit the water, it looked back to see the net disappear over the side of the boat. For a split second, the small little fish worried that it had missed out on something good. Maybe the fishermen were sent by a god to save the fish from some evil force in the water after all. Maybe the small little fish should have remained with the group and believed harder. Yet, as the small little fish began to swim away, it knew that wasn't the truth. The truth was, the fish were not saved to some better fate at all. For once aboard the fishing boat, the fish were sorted, gutted, and packed on ice and placed in the depth of the fishing boat. The small little fish was sure of this now, as it swam across the gutted remains of the other fish, who were tossed from the fishing boat as it sailed toward port. The fishermen, content with their catch, sat on crates and barrels, smoking their pipes and talking about the one that got away.